Stellaris 4.0 is almost here, and it is easily one of the largest expansions we have ever seen for the game. Not only will the Biogenesis DLC add in new origins, biological ships, upgrades to hive minds, and the biological ascension, but the free update itself completely overhauls the pop mechanic. And in this video, we're gonna take those pops and completely throw them out the window. Sort of. Not entirely. Kind of? It's complicated. You'll see. And before we get started, I want to say a very big thank you to Paradox Interactive, not only for getting me early access to the new content for Stellaris, but also for sponsoring today's video. It is, of course, very much appreciated. And for those of you who have enjoyed my Stellaris content in the past, but maybe never tried out the game for yourself, now is the time. On May 8th through the 12th, there is going to be a free weekend for the base game of Stellaris, so be sure to check that out, and I'll include a link in the description down below if you'd like to learn more about the free play or maybe just the new content. So, what have I cooked up for today's video? Well, you know how a hive mind is especially fun to play, right? A single mind controlling billions of life forms across the galaxy. But what if instead of billions of life forms, you only controlled one very large life form, in fact, a sentient planet? You know, kind of like that villain from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Well, now you can, with the new Wilderness Origin. This is a hive mind type that will be, in fact, a full-sized sentient planet. It's going to have completely unique buildings, districts, and so on. We don't even colonize the same way, and we really care about one particular new resource: biomass. You see, we are already one glorious entity. I have no pops, I need no pops, only further extensions of myself, but to do that, we need building blocks, and that is where biomass comes in. And there are a lot of valid civics that we could use to customize our wilderness, depending on your playstyle. We could be very peaceful and scientific and diplomatically focused, or we could be a bunch of body snatchers who kidnap pops in order to absorb them as biomass, or we could just become a devouring swarm. And that is exactly what we are going to play as today: the hunger of Elysius. I'll pair this with the subspace FAPS in order to get some extra naval capacity and speed, since combat is going to be very important to a devouring swarm, though I do think the neural networks could be pretty good as well, and I'm specifically playing as a plantoid this time around, using one of the new Biogenesis portraits. And the reason I'm doing that is because I wanted to pick up the rooted negative trait. Pops will not automatically resettle, but I don't think that's going to matter, and you'll see why in just a bit, which effectively means this is a free 3 points that I can spend elsewhere. Plus, we'll take repugnant, since amenities shouldn't be too hard for us to come by, and I will instead pick up extremely adaptive and rapid breeders, because these are going to boost up my habitability and my pop growth speed. And that sounds weird, because I did say that we don't care about pops, we only care about biomass, but trust me, it works. I'm also going to pick up natural sociologists, and this is normally not what I would want to do. But if you're going to be playing with one of the new biological ship sets, it's extremely important. Because unlike all of the mechanical ship sets, we do not use engineering to build our ships, we learn them through biological development. And biological ships play very differently from your typical mechanical ships. You'll see, they're pretty awesome. But I don't want to get stuck talking about my setup for too long. Let's go ahead and begin a game on Grand Admiral difficulty. And here we are, Elysius, the sentient planet in the Kel-6th system. One lonely body in the infinite nature of space, and we are very hungry. Let's take a look at our planetary development, because as you're immediately going to notice, it's completely different. The UI has been completely reworked with a strong focus on the different district types, which can be specialized once you get certain technologies. Those specializations are going to change the nature of how these districts are going to work, and then the buildings that can be constructed within are going to get you extra bonuses as well. In addition to that, let's talk a little bit about your pops. Normally, you would be growing your pops over here, either biologically or constructing robots, and you can now grow multiple types of pops at the same time. That's a cool new feature. But as the wilderness, we don't really care about that. Instead, the only thing we really care about is the biomass. But how do you gain more of this? Well, primarily by growing more pops, which again sounds weird because we're not really going to grow any pops, right? Well, sort of, kind of. If I speed forward by a quick monthly tick, what you'll see is we are instead still growing a population. So what does this mean? Well, it might seem a little confusing, but as far as I can tell, the amount of biomass you gain per month is the sum of all organic pop growth across your empire. And all of the normal pop growth mechanics still apply here. Pop growth speed is a percentage gain, habitability does matter. And also the wilderness comes with a nifty little building called the Cradle of Rebirth, which is going to take some food and convert it directly into 2 biological pop growth per month for every one of these we have on a planet. Why do we care about biomass? Because we are going to use it to colonize any planets. And you also need it to construct pretty much any of your buildings, which means that biomass is going to be a crucial bottleneck for us. But here's the thing. Because we don't really care about pops, the math of a wilderness is a little bit unusual. See, with any other empire, as we grow our pops, let's say we get 10 people in a month, they'd be able to go and work 10 different jobs across your planet. But with the biomass, technically speaking, every 1 pop that we have is worth 1,000 workforce. Effectively, this is kind of like playing as the virtual synthetic ascension in the game, in that every building I construct should almost instantly be working at full capacity. No waiting for the pops required. So if we can generate a ton of biomass, we will be able to spread across the stars at record speeds. But getting that biomass does still take some time. The more planets we colonize, the more cradles of rebirth we have, the more stacking modifiers, the better. Or of course you could play as a Devouring Swarm, and that is another way of gaining some biomass. We will eat all of the xenos that we can find. So I need to be focusing on building up a very strong military industrial complex early on, find some weak neighbors, and devour them, convert their biomass into my own glorious consciousness. It's a little wacky, trust me, but it gets, oh, so very fun. In fact, I'll go ahead and start constructing a new Cradle of Rebirth immediately over here. Notice this takes food instead of minerals to construct, as well as a lot of biomass, 400. It'll pay for itself eventually though, don't you worry. We should also talk a bit about how districts work in the game now because they're very different. Now, as before, you have a certain number of district slots and you can spend them across urban, energy, mineral, or food production districts. And every one of these districts we add is not only going to add some housing, but also a number of different jobs to generate, let's say, some raw resources. Again, specializations will come later. But the urban districts are very different now. What you will see is you can get some specializations on these urban districts, and for every urban district we build, we will also gain some jobs. In this case, with the harmonic core, I would gain some physics, biology, engineering, and unity jobs. So if you want to be a science world, not only would you want to stack a bunch of research lab buildings, but you also would want to get as many of these urban districts as possible as long as you have the right specialization, like this think STEM, which would get me 30 jobs in each of the science categories. So no longer do I want to reserve tiny worlds for science research and get a bunch of building slots. No, now I want to find the biggest planets I can and make sure that they are stacked with loads of urban districts. Now, as far as some early game traditions, I think the first thing I'll be picking up is actually the expansion tradition. This is going to boost up my terraforming speed, which means colonization goes a lot faster. Plus, with this particular empire type, pops is not going to be the primary source of my empire size, reducing the effectiveness of my technology traditions and edicts. Instead, it's almost all going to come down to districts, planets, and systems, and having the limited autonomy is really going to help with that. Plus, we can get some additional pop growth speed, and that means more biomass. And since I do see 2 large tropical worlds over here, that's especially important to me right now. Now, as I start expanding to some of these districts, something you're going to notice is building up a starbase costs food, weirdly enough. And it would if I want to get mining stations as well. What gives? Well, you see, biological ships are kind of weird in that they don't just cost alloys to build. In fact, they primarily cost food because we have to grow everything. That means, for very biologically focused empires, food is now one of the most important resources we can get in the game. I told you it's going to be a completely different way of playing the game, and I was not kidding. Let's go ahead and colonize, by the way. If I click on this tropical world, you can see here that we can, in fact, spend 500 biomass to convert this tropical world into one of my own planet, an extension of my own consciousness using the terraforming spores. Soon our worlds shall become one. So that means that we don't actually use colony ships at all. We just colonize directly using biomass. Another reason you need to have a lot on hand. And unfortunately, it does take a very long time to terraform the planet, even though it was already the correct habitability type. That's one more reason I think that expansion traditions are pretty helpful. The more time you have working with the planet, the more you can gain from it. Now, will we be able to colonize other worlds? Yeah, eventually. Once we get ecological adaptation, we can colonize different planets, but if it is the wrong habitability type, it does cost a lot more biomass. In fact, if we go for, let's say, a desert world, which is pretty much the opposite of a tropical world, it's going to cost me something like 2,000 biomass. Very expensive. So for obvious reasons, I'd much prefer to keep to my own kind. For now. New planet colonized. One of the first things I think I'll build is another cradle of rebirth. I know it's a lot of biomass to do this, but I like having a bit of local organic pop growth, just to make sure we are getting as much into our pool as possible. And then we could choose a specialization on this new planet. I mean, if we want to focus on more science, or a lot of unity, or perhaps become a forge world, these are options. But regardless, I do recommend picking up at least one of each of the raw material districts, which may sound a little bit weird. You do still want to specialize in something if you're not going to go for urban districts, but by at least having one district in each, we will be able to specialize. And once specialized, we could place down some buildings for more jobs. It's expensive, not very good value, again, very good to specialize in one type, but at least you'll have everything available, and that matters a lot for the wilderness because jobs are not our problem. We have plenty of those. I do also want to point out how the buildings are going to work here. So notice that this think stem here is about to build up a new lab. If we go to our economy, what we're going to see is with the different research types, right now we have 30 jobs in each. Once this is done, though, it's going to get built. Let's take a look now. We have 60 jobs, and guess what? They're instantly populated. That is how the biomass works. And we love it so very, very much. And, oh my gosh, we've met somebody new. Hello, a shattered fragment, fallen empire. In fact, there's 3 shattered fragments over here. This is something new that's been added into the game. We have a hive, fallen empire now. They're gonna be a little bit scary. Fortunately, they're pretty far from me. Now, one thing I'm going to do over here is go back to my capital world now that I've filled out a lot of my districts. I do not like how so many of these districts are being used on trade right now. Trade is okay, right? We can generate trade as a resource and then trade that directly for things like energy, minerals, food, and so on. But this is just not getting as much value. I could get so many more jobs from all of these in science if I were to replace this with, let's say, a think stem. So this is going to suddenly turn all of this trade jobs into, I think, a few hundred science jobs. So let's see, we're about to go from 230 jobs in each category to 530. Yes, that's 115 science, which is about to become 187, just from that simple change. Pretty powerful stuff. We have our next tradition available. This time I think I'm going to go for, well, prosperity would be tempting, actually, because the building cost reduction does save you biomass, believe it or not. But I think we're going to go for supremacy. We are a devouring swarm. As soon as I find a neighbor, we need to start training up a navy and go kill them. Now, here's something really important we need to talk about, and that is going to be how our fleets continue to develop. Specifically, when you build up a brand new round of ships, or rather you grow a few, they don't just stay in their little juvenile state. They can actually grow up into 3 distinct growth stages. There's the juvenile, the mature, and the elder. In order to let them grow up, you will need to unlock this technology, but what it effectively does is makes your biological ships substantially more powerful as they age. If we take a look at our ship designer over here, for example, we can see right now that with our Mauler, which is kind of like a Corvette class, though it is a bit different, it has actual pincers. Once this thing grows up from a juvenile, it'll become a mature, and it'll have more slots on it, both for offense and defense. And when it becomes an elder, even more becomes available. But growth takes time, so it's something you want to invest in early. How are we doing as far as our biomass generation right now? Well, it looks like we're getting about 3, 3, and 7, so about 13 or so biomass per month right now. That is substantially better than we were. It does still take a while, though. Like I said, biomass ends up being your biggest bottleneck at the beginning of the game, so everything I'm doing is oriented towards speeding that process up. Oh, finally, we met another empire, and they're right next to me. Hello. Well, we should spy on you and find out if you're easily consumed. The answer is probably not, for at least a little while, but I do need to get my fleet built up so we can fight them. So let's make sure we get ourselves some alloy specialization on this planet, and then of course, build out more of these districts. Minerals is also a very serious bottleneck in this game, which, you know, that's typical for every empire. But even though food will be necessary for a lot of functions, and that's why I'm stockpiling a bunch up right now, in order to get our basic economy and the districts up without biomass, It just takes a ton of minerals. But at least we don't need to spend our minerals getting all these mining stations, so that actually helps. And actually, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about some ships since I'm actively reworking this. If you want to get some growth building up passively on your ships, it's going to take some time, right? You need 60 growth progress in order to become a mature mauler in this case. So what you want to do is come over here to this empty slot, which is easily overlooked, and put in a growth gland. This is only going to be available once you've researched the mature version of the ship, and then eventually for mature, you'll have to do the same thing to get to elder. But now we'll gain 1 growth per month. So in 60 months, 5 years, this is going to become a mature ship automatically. Our second ship type here is called the Weaver, and it is a special support ship unique to the biological ship set. We are going to have some special modules here that can be used to either debuff our enemies or buff up our own ships, in this case with some evasion chance and more speed, and debuff our opponent in the same way. I could also confuse military ships so they might fire on their own. We might be able to slow down their fire rate, and so on. Alright, now we've unlocked some specializations. As long as you have one district in the type that can be specialized, this becomes available to us. Now, as a wilderness, we don't have a lot of specialization types available. If you're playing as a different biological empire, this can split off in a lot of different directions. As it is right now, what you're going to find here is that this specialization costs a lot of minerals, but for every district of this type, we will get bonus jobs. So it's kind of like doubling up on our jobs. And we're going to get 3 building slots, which can be used for even more jobs. So if I were to do this, I'd probably want to place it here, because that would be worth 600 more mining jobs. Now, we're about 20 years into the game here. I have about 250 science coming in. I wouldn't say that that's my best. Normally, I could get a better rush right now, but for what we've got, I think this is turning out pretty good so far. Now, one issue I'm going to run into here is we are a little bit capped out on how much further I can grow. Our economy is kind of hitting its full strain. I've mostly fully populated these planets up until I get some new technologies, with the exception of more alloy production. Maybe a little bit more minerals and stuff, but that's kind of it. So if we want to continue growing, we'll either have to start upgrading some buildings, which we can do right off the bat, and that's another good use of biomass. Or, of course, we want to start conquering. And for that, I need a lot more food generation. As much food as I can muster. By the way, here is the new building slots available for this district. So here I could put in a cache for more material storage, or I could just get myself some of these extra jobs. Which is why I was saying it's kind of worth having at least one of every district type, because if you find yourself with a glut of resources, even though getting this specialization isn't going to get you as much value as it would, say, right here, at least being able to place these buildings everywhere does mean more jobs, so can't go wrong. Now here we can choose to colonize a world, and I think I'm going to have to do this even though it is not the right type, and we are going to have a biomass penalty growing here, but I think it's fine. I'm not going to try to convert this into a tropical world. We could do that, but for 2,500 biomass, that's a little bit insane. What I'll do instead is go ahead and terraform and control the Savannah world as it is. And then later, once I have the ecological adaptation technology, we'll be able to terraform it into a tropical world using energy instead of biomass, which is going to be a lot better for me. Now, let's take a look at these guys over here. The United Quentian Alliance is pathetic compared to me. That's all I needed to hear. We've been building up a whole bunch of ships. Let's go ahead and move them. And I'm going to go ahead and declare the war. I don't even need to have any claims. I'm just hungry. Go, 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 devour their systems. So here come a bunch of biological ships to start destroying their starbase. And they're pretty powerful overall. There we go. We automatically conquer the system. This is basically like having an extermination casus belli. Alright, there's none of this whole occupation nonsense. It's mine now. Of course, we should be wary that that works both ways. We would not want them to come and take all of my stuff. I see their capital planet with a pretty small, paltry number of defenders. Let's see if we can't run in here and knock this down quickly before they can train up any more fleets. No problem whatsoever. Just need to train up some armies, and we can get down here and start consuming the xenos. So we're probably about to completely destroy my economy by grossly overexpanding here. I have no doubt that's the case. But these guys have, I think, effectively no fleet left. So, I mean, this is just free pickings, free biomass. I did ask for more. I can't complain when it falls in my lap. So, let's go ahead and land on this planet. We instantly capture it. Good. Look at all the beautiful xenos. Eat them. Eat them. That's 387 undesirables that shall be consumed. We've got 296 biomass right now, so I'm curious to see how quickly this is going to start shooting up. I mean, it's hard to say. It does seem to be going up pretty rapidly. We're getting about...
Predatory
yeah, we're getting like an extra 10 per month or so, I think, than we usually would. Oh yeah, I'm starting to rake in the biomass now. Turns out eating 4 planets is a lot of pops. So we're now 30 years into the game, and I'm about to eliminate another player entirely, and I have 5 more, about to be 6 more planets at my disposal. And all of my core worlds that I'm actively managing are very easily getting upgraded at this point. It's all just going to come down to having enough biomass to keep the spread going. I guess I'm also kind of slowing myself down dramatically with my increasing empire size. One problem with playing as the Wilderness is you do get hit extra hard by districts and colonies. So the more of those we have, the more it slows down everything else. We can finally finish my supremacy ideas. My, Unity generation has been a little on the slow side as of late. I'm kind of thinking I might have to get the Imperial prerogative just to reduce the Empire size to something somewhat usable. Not that it did much, because as soon as I took their homeworld, boom, it jumps up to another 820. Youch! All right, we are sprawling. I mean, at some point, we need to find a way to stack up some Empire size modifiers so that I can offset the damage and just outproduce how bad this Empire size has become. Which can be done, it's just gonna take a while. See, I'm actually getting capped out on resources now. That's how much our economy has grown. I may be slow in Unity and research now, but at least on everything else, I'm doing just fine. Oh, here we go. We now know the Mysticators of Quepta are pathetic. Don't need to tell me twice. What should we choose for our next round of traditions? Good question. I would say synchronicity would make sense because of the empire size from pops. But given that I don't actually have very many pops at all in my empire, since, every 1 pop is worth a ton of workforce, that's not actually useful to me. Domination, on the other hand, empire size from districts minus 10%, maybe that could be good. Not very good, mind you. Almost everything else is completely useless. But prosperity, on the other hand, it wouldn't give us empire size, but I could use it to get, let's say, 5% more output for all of my complex drones, less upkeep, and so on. Oh, I don't know. I guess that's an acceptable decision at this point. Sure, we'll take prosperity. It's not great, though. Well, regardless, let's go ahead and start our new war. The hunt shall begin. Crush the fools! And I've got enough fleet power, this really shouldn't be too much of a problem for me. What's this? You guys built an arc furnace over here. Oh, you shouldn't have. I'll be taking that. Gosh, there's so many refugees. All these people trying so desperately to get away from my glorious biomass extraction. I'm hungry! Don't you run from me! Feed me! Does seem a little bit creepy when you say it like that, doesn't it? Oh, yes it does. And I still haven't even unlocked cruisers yet, or rather the biological equivalent. Oh my gosh, we have so much more to do. And I'm up to almost 1,000 science as we continue building out all these planets. Who cares about empire size, am I right? I mean, I care a lot, but still. And say goodbye to that player. So we now control a pretty sizable chunk of the galaxy, and it's only 2247. And I've already spotted my next target. Oh, look, they're also pathetic. Are we sure this is on Grand Admiral difficulty? You know what's really sad is all these people haven't decided to ally against me. I mean, seriously, when you've got a sentient planet that has apparently decided to go kamikaze on the entire galaxy, none of you thought to ally against it? No one? You deserve what you get. I'm taking effectively no losses as I fight these guys, by the way. I mean, I knew their fleet power was pathetic, but I thought at least their technology would be reasonable. Turns out no. Hey, let's go ahead and finish up the prosperity traditions. Guess what this means? Now that we have our 3rd ascension perk, we can look to ascend, and this has been completely reworked in the Biogenesis DLC. Biomorphosis is going to normally lead to 3 distinct methods of evolving biologically. However, as the Wilderness, only one option will be available to us: purity. The other options normally would be either cloning or mutation, but Wilderness only focuses on purity, so this is now going to start making some progress. And as we progress through this biogenesis, there will be a few events here and there which can kind of help shape the direction of our morphosis. I don't mind, for example, having a bit of district upkeep for 5 years, but 20% more society research. Sounds good. And while we wait on that to continue and this splendid war to finish up, let's go ahead and take a look at our new ship. All right, so we have the Harbinger. By default, these guys like to be carriers, and they do have a lot of point defense as well, but considering how strong carriers are, I mean, this is actually a pretty good setup for us. Now, we do have enough unity at this point to get ourselves another tradition, but I'm going to deliberately hold off on this, because I know exactly what I want to pick up for my 4th tradition, and we're not going to be able to get it quite yet. There is a special Purity tradition, specifically for those who finish the Purity Biomorphosis. In fact, all of the different Biogenesis have a unique tradition specifically for them. Why does this matter to me, though? Look at this right down here. 25% reduction of empire size for districts and planets. Huge! Not to mention, we'll be able to start expanding our planets by spending alloys and food, building up to a maximum size of 25. So all of my worlds will become super swole. Anyway, not much more I can do over here. These guys are safely trapped behind the borders of someone else, which I guess I could eat, but they're just machines. I can't imagine machines taste very good. So we'll just go ahead and let them continue growing on their little planets. You know, keep fattening yourself up. I'll eat you later. And now, seriously, we need to take a step back and just worry about this empire size. It is murdering my technology right now. We are going so slow compared to where I should be. And this is kind of my main problem with Devouring Swarms. Normally, I actually prefer to kind of have a nice core sector and then just build really tall for a while, and then once I've got everything I need, launch a wave against the entire galaxy. In this case, I kind of needed to keep eating things in order to get enough biomass. But now my economy is extremely self-sustained, so we can afford to sit back and do nothing for a bit. At least until I can figure out how to fix the dang empire size. Well, we're getting much closer to biomorphosis. One thing I can do that's going to help a lot with my empire size, though. Now that I have unlocked an additional civics point, one thing we could pick up is divided attention. Empire size effect minus 25%. I'm sure that's not going to stack up beautifully with the whole 200% modifiers, but it should help. Yeah, we dropped at least a bit, so now the impact of having the empire size is greatly reduced. I think it was like 370% impact to my tech costs and traditions, now it's 240%. Maybe I'm misremembering that, but that feels significantly better. Good news is Biogenesis is now finished. We now know what it means to be pure, and we automatically adopt a new tradition tree. So there's purity. And doing this gets me another 20% to my leader lifespan, which is, you know, nice. But the most important thing I can do right now is go for heightened attributes, and we have plenty of unity stacked up. So let's go ahead and go for the optimized neurology, which is going to get me some better leaders when we hire them up. Plus, there we go, empire size goes from 2,500 down to 2144. Okay, that shaved off about 350. That's not horrible. Bigger planets should be fun. Plus, we can go for genotype regeneration. We could assimilate pops if I want to. Meh. And then in just a few months, we'll go for the last one here with exemplary genetics as well. More modification points. And then we truly shall be pure. Purely perfect. So now my penalty for empire size is down to 215%. Okay. The more we stack these modifiers up, the easier it's going to be for me to outproduce the growth of my empire size. I think we're just kind of starting to hit that critical mass. This will finish up the purity tree, which also gets me more build speed and decision enactment speed for buildings and districts, and all districts are uncapped. And of course, we will be picking up a new ascension perk. Now, apparently we could pick up Behemoth Fury here, which is a new method of becoming the Crisis. Literally, my planet will turn into a dragon and destroy the galaxy. But I'm pretty sure that this is supposed to be blocked, and Paradox said this is not supposed to be active for the wilderness. So I'm not gonna do that, fun as it would be. Wow, I've got 8 trait points to work with right now. 8 trait points to build with my, oh my gosh, biological ascension's great. Frick, what do I even want? Job efficiency for researcher jobs plus 30% sounds pretty good. And I could have inorganic breath. We just start producing obscene amounts of exotic gases. Well, then again, I say that. Hang on. This is actually misleading because we don't have that many pops in the galaxy. I've got 1.9 thousand. Most players would have tens of thousands right now. So this is actually less useful for me as the wilderness. Guess I'll make myself very strong. Sure, I am Groot, I guess. And let's be no longer repugnant. Not that that really matters that much. This will only take 757 research because I only have 2,000 pops. That's dirt cheap. Dirt cheap, I tell you. It'll be done in 1 month. Easy! Oh my god, that was incredible. Yeah, it's pretty nice having a tiny number of pops. That was worth almost 1,000 more science, just like that. Let's go ahead and upgrade our Harbingers. So once you've unlocked the Bioswarmer missiles, you actually can turn off all the point defense that are on these ships and turn them into carrier artillery classes, which are exceptionally powerful, so I can't complain about that. Since we have the technology, let's go ahead and terraform this world. So notice it takes 5,000 energy credits instead of 2,500 biomass to colonize this. So that is how we're going to get around the extreme costs. Everything can be tropical now. I just need lots of energy. Oh, and now we've got access to battleships. Well, sort of, kind of. They're not exactly battleships, they're called Stingers. And they're really good. Now, one thing I have observed with this wilderness is sometimes as you are building out your empire and mass constructing things using your biomass, you will occasionally have issues where suddenly your just population goes away. And I'm not too sure what causes all of that. It does seem like once you spend all your biomass, something recalculates in the game. And it does sometimes just depopulate your planets. It uses the pops to create the structure rather than going directly from your biomass pool, and then it just restores it, and then it takes time to kick back in. So you may find your economy and your research fluctuate very wildly as you play. If that's the case, it probably means you need to chill out with the biomass just a little bit, slow down, let it kind of regenerate, don't go too crazy for a little bit longer. But it does fix itself, I can promise you that. Case in point, I just built a structure, spent 600 biomass, and my plus 300 food just shot down to minus 400. That sort of thing will happen. If I do it again, I'll bet you it gets a lot worse. Hang on, it's gonna recalculate. And boom, there we go. We've lost all of our energy. We've lost even more food. We've lost all of our trade. We've lost all of our science. That's what I'm talking about. You really, really need to chill sometimes with the biomass. And this is something I hope gets a little bit polished as time goes on. All right, here comes our battleships. Now these puppies are strong. Right off the bat, you're gonna notice 2 X slots. I mean, I don't have anything researched yet, but 2 at juvenile? And by the time you get to Elder, 4 X slots on every one of these battleships. I mean, sure, they're expensive, but they're really, really powerful. Now, one thing to be aware of before you get too excited, the X slots for bioships are a little bit weaker than the X slots for mechanical. But once you have 4 of them on a ship, I mean, it's still really good. So if I can find a way to research a really big gun, I'm gonna alpha strike the crud out of everyone around me, and I won't feel bad about it at all. Oh, the galactic community finally got born. We're 77 years into the game, and we only now have the galactic community? Sorry, did I eat too many of you?
They will be devoured.
We're starting to pick a lot up on our science now, by the way. Things are improving dramatically. It's all gonna come down to controlling that empire size, and this is another downside, I suppose, of the wilderness. Because we're devouring, we don't take vassals, we take no prisoners, we just eat everything. And I also cannot create any, like, proper sectors, or rather, like, autonomous sectors, or create any, like, spin-off vassals. So there's no way of really controlling our growth so that we can build tall anymore, which is one of the reasons I'm kind of chilling out and not eating for a bit. Elysius is satiated, for now. I suppose what I could do is actually just go beat up my neighbors and take all their systems, but none of their planets. That would be one way of solving the problem, I suppose. Like these machines. They're disgusting, I can't eat them anyway. Let's just, take their stuff. We're beginning the mass terraforming of my entire empire, by the way. Got the money, might as well do it. Oh my god, finally another tech I really need. Networked relays. Considering how large my empire is getting right now, being able to get around really quickly would be awesome. All right, at last I finally do have an X slot. It's the mega cannon. Not exactly what I would prefer to have, but I mean, sure, all right, why not? Let's slap 4 of these onto an Elder artillery stinger. Oh my god, that's insane. I mean, you could just swap it for more large slots and medium slots, but like, why? Alpha strikes are so much better. The only big problem that I can see is it does cost a lot of power in order to have these things run. So we may not be able to have quite as many shields or lasers as before. Well, that takes care of the next accumulators. So we're now 100 years into the game officially. I own probably about 1/3 of the galaxy or so. The hyper network is on its way as a superhighway system. And from what I can tell from all intel, none of my neighbors are anywhere close to my power, and I'm not even at my full strength. Like, I'm pretty confident we could just go on a massive conquest spree, and the only thing that could possibly slow me down are going to be the fallen empires themselves. I mean, I've played a lot of Grand Admiral games in Stellaris. This might be one of the easiest I've ever done. Just a complete and total walk in the park. The wilderness is strong, dude. And I've got more hungry ships than I know what to do with at this point. I mean, I know exactly what to do with them. Kill everyone. My economy is stupid strong. We're making about 7,000 science now. Yeah, granted, my empire sprawl is very painful. And it's almost entirely due to the dang districts. Oof, that is painful, very painful. But I've got so many planets, way more than I actually want to manage at this point. And I'm nowhere even close to fully reaching my full power here. All these planets, most of them still need some development. I've got plenty of biomass, I've got the freaking minerals. It's just a matter of micromanaging everything. And now that I'm picking up Defender of the Galaxy, between that and the Galactic Contender, I should have huge damage bonuses against any fallen empires, and eventually the endgame crisis, which means I'm setting myself up beautifully for the endgame right now. And the economy certainly can support whatever I want to do. It's just a matter of actually managing this gosh dang empire size. And at this point, I think we're gonna go ahead and end this video before I make things even crazier. The Wilderness Origin is extremely fun, there's no way around it, and I really love the idea behind the bioorganic ships. Raising them from juveniles into monsters is just unbelievably cool. And I know it's a little bit weird that we decided not to play a game with proper pop growth in this game, but I think you can certainly see how it's supposed to work, and the fact that we have so many workers for every pop just makes us unbelievably strong. And to think it all started with one simple hungry planet. Absolutely beautiful. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're as excited about the 4.0 upgrade and the Biogenesis DLC as I am, and trust me, there's even more to explore with the different origins. If you guys want to learn more about the new Stellaris updates, there'll be a link in the description down below, and don't forget that there is going to be a free play weekend starting on May 8th. So if you want to try out the vanilla game with the new 4.0 upgrade, you can certainly do that. Otherwise, I would ask you to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, hit that notify bell, and I will see you guys next time.